Hello and welcome to Link Ahead. Today we are talking about Memorial Day, its meaning, its history, and the service and sacrifice behind it with someone who knows that responsibility firsthand. But first, joining us today is Shirley Blaine, Communications Strategist for the City of Dublin, who's filling in for Bruce today. Shirley, thanks for being here. And coming from a military family yourself, you bring a personal connection to today's conversation.
Thank you, Lindsay. I'm so glad to be here and be part of this important conversation.
And now joining us is Colonel Andrew Powers, commander of the 121st Air Refueling Wing of the Ohio Air National Guard, and this year's keynote speaker at Dublin's Memorial Day ceremony here in Dublin at Dublin Ceremony. Colonel Powers, welcome to Link Ahead. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate the invitation to be here with you today, talk a little bit about Memorial Day and about the 121st and the great things that our airmen do around the world every day.
Absolutely. Before we talk about this year's ceremony, let's start with Memorial Day. It's a national holiday remembering Americans who died in military service. But today it's often viewed as, that start of summer, a day for cookouts and barbecues and time with family. From your perspective as a military leader, talk about the deeper meaning of Memorial Day and why it's important.
Sure. I think it is important to note that that unofficial start to summer is important. It's part of our national fabric, and that's okay. That's fine. A lot of people are like, this Memorial Day.
Sure.
But Memorial Day, to your point, is really about honoring with dignity and respect those who have recognized something about our great nation. Something about our country, the freedoms we enjoy, the American way of life, who've decided that it is worth protecting, it is worth safeguarding so that future generations can enjoy that same thing, and who have gone off to do our nation's business and made the ultimate sacrifice and did not return. So that is the cornerstone founding of Memorial Day, and really the focus that we want to get after.
Yes, and sadly, this day hits especially close to home this year. Recently, the Ohio Air National Guard lost 3 airmen in Iraq. Would you be willing to share a little bit about who they were and what they meant to you and your unit?
Sure. There were 6 total killed. 3 of them were ours. Captain Seth Koval, Captain Curtis Angst, and Master Sergeant Tyler Simmons. 3 outstanding Americans, really the best of who we are. They were, along with Major Alex Klinner, Major Ariana Savino, and Tech Sergeant Ashley Pruitt, who all 6 were in that aircraft that crashed. Again, all great Americans, that made that choice to stand up and to serve our nation, to safeguard those ideals and the principles that make our nation great. For our 3, for Seth and Curtis and Ty, each of them had been in the wing for quite some time. All basically at least 8 to 10 years. In Seth's case, he started his military journey about 20 years ago in the Indiana Air National Guard, and then came over to the Ohio Air Guard in the 121st a little over 10 years ago to fly with us. Curtis started out in the 123rd within the Ohio Air National Guard, which is an air control squadron down in the Cincinnati area, and then he came to the 121st about 5 years ago now, and then Ty has been with the wing for a little over over 10, actually almost 10 years, and flying for about 8. All seasoned aviators. When the current operation started, we needed volunteers, and all 3 of them put their hands up right away and said, "We're ready to go." And each of them has unique characteristics that made them special. Seth was remarkable with his hands. He started out in the military in fabrication shop, basically making aircraft parts, and that translated into carpentry. Curtis, he's one of those guys where you're instant friends with him. An interesting anecdote with him, even after he joined the 121st, he would go out of his way to go back and visit his buddies from his old unit on annual training because he was just such good friends with them. And that's the kind of person he was. You're just instantly at ease with him. And then Ty Simmons, was just a remarkably positive individual. His aura would just fill a room when he walked in. His smile was infectious, and just if anybody was having a bad day, it would stop when Ty walked in.
Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing that with us. And, we certainly offer our condolences to you and to their families and thank them for their service as well.
The caring for and supporting the families of our fallen remains critically important for us and a focus for us. They're going through immeasurable loss now, and that's something that's going to be a years-long process, not days or weeks. So it's critically important that we stand behind them and we support them as we honor their loved ones' sacrifices. And similarly, we want to continue to support the people of our wing. I think I might have alluded that we're deployed around the world right now. So focusing on the care and well-being of our deployed family members, our deployed military members and their family members, and making sure that they are supported and able to continue on. Right now, the wing is continuing to operate in the face of this great loss, and they're pressing forward and getting after the mission, maybe with a renewed sense of purpose because of all of the events that have gone on.
And their KC-135 refueling aircraft was carrying out a critical mission. Can you talk about the complexity and the importance of missions like that?
Sure. So really, when it comes to something unique about the United States military is our ability to project power around the world globally in a very short amount of time. And the Air Force is one of the big drivers of that. And really to make that happen, you need air refueling. And that's the principal mission of the KC-135. And we have 12 of them here at Rickenbacker that the 121st operates, maintains, and deploys as needed. So really, I mean, any effect we want to have, whether it's delivering combat air power, having some kind of a weapons effect somewhere in the world, or delivering people or supplies and support. And we do a lot of humanitarian support, and the United States military does as well. So really, any of those capabilities, to have them around anywhere in the world when we need them, needs air refueling to get there. It's just kind of a backbone or a cornerstone of our military power.
Mm-hmm. And I understand there are plans underway to honor the airmen who lost their lives here locally. Are there any details that you're willing to share at this point about those services?
Sure. So we actually just a little over a month ago completed the third of our funerals. We will do a memorial service, an official memorial service, but we still have a number of people deployed right now overseas. Engage in operations around the world, and we want them to have an opportunity to be part of that. So we'll wait for them to get back before we actually set that up and organize it. So sometime, hopefully not too much later this year, but we don't have a date set yet.
Well, I think for many people in Central Ohio, this news might have actually shed light on the fact that the 121st Air Refueling Wing operates right here in Central Ohio at Rickenbacker Air National Guard. So can you give us a sense of the mission of the 121st and its history and, kind of what you're responsible for day to day?
Sure. I might go backwards or jump around a little bit there. But again, we have 12 KC-135s. That right now is the principal air refueling aircraft in the United States inventory. The Air Force has the most of those. We're capable of refueling just about any aircraft in the Air Force inventory, most of the U.S. Navy, a number of the Marine Corps, and a lot of like NATO allies and partner nations aircraft. And again, the extent of enabling their global reach and their ability to project combat power forward. We also have a number of other missions or corollary missions. We can do passenger movement, aeromedical evacuation, some cargo movement, and then we provide a lot of what's called agile combat support capabilities. So think security forces or air-based defense, civil engineering, maintaining and operating a base, force support, which is training, care, and feeding, if you will, logistics readiness, the supplies and the materials we need to operate. And of course, we've got a medical group as well that is principally focused on keeping our airmen ready to go. But they also have basically a domestic response capability. It's called a Homeland Response Force, which is a National Guard element that can respond to natural disasters or emergencies. For us, we're aligned with FEMA Region 5, which is roughly the Great Lakes states. But they're capable of providing medical support in a natural disaster or national emergency type situation. So really a lot there.
Wow.
Back to your question about the history. Mm-hmm. The 121st, we're actually the longest military tenant unit at Rickenbacker, and we've been there really since about 1947. Mm-hmm. The first element's there in 46, but really 1947. And to your point earlier, a lot of people don't realize we're there.
Right.
We're not a particularly large organization. As far as Air Force wings go, we have about 1,200 military members. And when you add in our civilians and contractors, we're closer to 1,400. And most of that is a part-time force. So about a third of us are full-time that are responsible for keeping keeping everybody else trained and ready to go and equipped and prepared. But 2/3 are out there. They do it in the proverbial 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year, which is really a bit of a misnomer in this day and age. But that people are used to hearing
Sure.
that and kind of understand that. And so they're living out in the communities. They're spread across central Ohio, really all parts of Ohio, and even many other states. And so they're out there in the communities, and we're just kind of spread out. And so that kind of maybe dilutes the presence a little bit. But yeah, we've been there for the 80 years. Here next year.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah, it's also the 80th birthday of the Air Force and the Air National Guard.
Nice.
So the 121st operates 12 KC-135 Stratotankers aircraft. Tell us about these airplanes. What do they do? What makes them unique? And why aerial refueling remains such an important mission today?
Yes. So the aircraft we have, the KC-135, it's an older aircraft. Some of them are pushing 60 plus years old. That's not to say that they're like antiquated. They've been modernized significantly over the years. They've completely modernized in all electronic avionics, or the equipment we use to communicate and navigate, operate the jet. It's all digital interface now versus analog vacuum tube things of days past. But again, principally is carrying fuel and refueling other aircraft in flight, which prevents them from having to land, make fuel stops en route. That gets stuff places quicker. It reduces the opportunity of aircraft breaking every time you turn it off. That you run the risk of something breaking. We can carry almost 200,000 pounds of fuel. And to put that in a sense that the average person can understand, that's just a little under 30,000 gallons. So, I mean, if you decide you're going to fill up your car with 15 gallons a week, I mean, you have decades of fuel, almost 40 years of fuel fill-ups in there.
We won't ask how much that would cost right now.
No.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your career. Did you always know that you wanted to be in the military? What brought you to that path? And did you know you wanted to be a pilot?
Sure. As a matter of fact, I did. That's kind of one of those childhood dreams, if you will. I'm one of the few people who say I am doing my childhood dream. I'm second generation in the military. My father was a pilot, and I kind of grew up around that. I knew that's what I wanted to do. Once I got in, I didn't really know how long I wanted to stay or beyond that. I mean, just kind of like get in the door and figure it out later, if you will. But yeah, I knew from an early age this is what I wanted to do.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Not everybody can always say that they got to grow up and do what they dreamed of doing.
We're living our dream too, Shirley,
Yes,
right?
definitely. We sure are. Over the course of your career, you've logged nearly 3,000 flight hours and deployed numerous times around the world.
Yes.
That's quite a lot.
Sure
Yes. Tell us more about that.
Sure. I'm just about 30 years of service now. So I've deployed both as a pilot and as a security forces member before then. Most of my deployments have been flying deployments, so really all around the world. It's an opportunity to see the value that is the United States. That is the American way of life. When you get out there and see how other countries around the world operate and freedoms and latitudes afforded their citizenry, it makes you grateful to be an American.
We're talking about Memorial Day and talking about these deployments, and people often recognize the sacrifice made by the service members, but deployments really affect the entire family. Help us understand that side of military service.
Yes, you probably have not been or could not go to a military service where we don't start out by thanking our family members. And it's because not what we're trying to just to do platitudes, but we truly understand that everything that we are able to accomplish, everything that we are able to achieve is absolutely underwritten by our families. Our families serve and sacrifice right alongside their military members. It's easy to think of deployments and temporary duty assignments away from home where you're missing birthdays or anniversaries, holidays. Defending the nation is a 24/7 business. And it absolutely requires the support of our families to be able to do that.
I think there's some law that when you deploy, something will break at home. I know every time my brother deploys, the water heater goes out, the refrigerator goes out. And so, I have to recognize my sister-in-law at that point. But
when my mom and dad were both deployed and came back after serving over in Baghdad, their unit sent my sister and I a letter thanking us for giving the time to allowing our parents to go and serve. And to me, that meant so much. And I still have that letter to this day. Just a really nice piece to remember the families there who are always thinking of those loved ones deployed. Which, speaking of, when the airmen return home from deployments or difficult missions, how does your unit support them and their families through that transition?
That's a great question. And really, it's a layered approach to it. There's not just a like, hey, go to this meeting or this briefing. First off, we welcome back and spend time with them, understanding, like, help them, have they seen, to your question, have they seen difficult circumstances or stressful situations, understanding that even if you haven't, when you've been away for a while, your family continues to grow and develop and live their lives, and they've grown accustomed to you not being there. And so making sure that both the military member coming back and the family at home understand that there's going to be some kind of a transition period where everybody gets back into the groove, if you will, or the new normal, or however you prefer to look at it. But that change and difference is normal. And making sure that if people did see extremely stressful situations or experience stressful situations, that they have mental well-being counseling support available to them. That if you see signs and symptoms of somebody having stress-related trauma, that to ask for help and where to go. And for us, it's critically important that we know that our families know that we are behind them every step of the way, every day. And so we go to great lengths to do that, from really every echelon of command, from the wing commander down through group commanders, squadron commanders to section supervisors.
Another thing that stands out about your career is your extensive military education, and I want to read through some of this here. 2 college degrees, including a master's, Air National Guard Academy, Squadron Office School, Air War College, Army Command, and General Staff College, plus warfighting school. Firstly, out of all of these experiences, what challenged you the most? And are you done with school, or is there still more ahead?
So, interestingly, there's more ahead. I'll start there. The military and really all of the services, they do spend a great deal of time, effort, and energy in leader development. And they do that really to increase the effectiveness and the efficiency and the capability of the organizations writ large. The more time you spend on developing the leadership in an organization, that kind of matriculates out. And you have leaders that spend time developing their people rather than focusing on like a metric or metrics. And when people are first, is when organizations, whether they be military or civilian, operate well. And so that's kind of the end all be all, if you will, with leader development. I've been extremely fortunate in my career to have a number of opportunities. I will have another opportunity here not before too long to do another program. We'll end up with another master's degree. But it's interesting because it gives you the opportunity to learn, to challenge yourself, and to explore ideas and concepts that are maybe outside your comfort zone and help you grow. To your question of, I think there was something about what was the most challenging. It was actually one not on that list. Okay. But I'll go back to it was undergraduate pilot training in the Air Force, and that's where just learning to fly, and that's basically a year-long program where it's extremely intense, and it's that way on purpose. They want to build up stressful situations and see how you act. And how you conduct yourself, and if you can make good decisions under pressure. Wow. And it's just a lot thrown at you really quick. But at the end of it, you feel extremely an extreme sense of confidence and worth and value. Like, I just accomplished this major thing. I can go out and do a lot of things.
Wow. Yeah. Well, as we wrap up, let's come back to Dublin's Memorial Day tribute at the Dublin Cemetery. Without giving away the whole speech,
sure.
Which messages do you hope people take away from this year's ceremony?
I would like people to take away that this is a big year for our nation, and most of, well, I shouldn't say most, a number of our military services actually predate the country. Both the Army, the Navy, the National Guard predates those by another 100+ years. And so service and sacrifice is no stranger to our nation. And it's no stranger to Ohio. I'll talk a little bit about some of Ohio's contributions to our nation over the years. And we'll talk a little bit about our 3 that we recently lost and their importance to honor and respect their sacrifice. But I think that if we can take away that the United States is a great nation, despite the challenges we face. It is an imperfect nation, sure, but the underlying principles and reasons behind it are solid. And if people can take that away and understand that as I'll paraphrase President Reagan, freedom is never more than one generation away from disappearing. And I'll talk more about that. But if people understand that this great nation is worth sacrificing for, and we honor and uplift the sacrifices of those that came before to protect this great nation, I think is probably the best takeaway.
Wow.
It's very moving. I can't wait to hear the rest of the speech too. I'll be there at the ceremony.
Yes, absolutely. 11 a.m. on Memorial Day at Dublin Cemetery. And you alluded to it, but this year is also a big year with America's 250th birthday, the semi-sesquicentennial. I think I can almost say it now. Thanks.
But can you do it 5 times fast?
I will not put anyone through that. When you think about the United States, what stands out to you most about the nation's history, progress, and resilience?
Well, it is absolutely a resilient nation. That's probably a great spot to start. It has been through so much, from a fledgling nation on the precipice of collapse for decades, really, through existential threats multiple times. Both internal and external over that 250-year history. I think that is testimony to the endurability and the solid foundation upon which the country is built. That there is always a bit of tension. It is always healthy to have a bit of tension. And I think that if you look back over that 250 years, sure, the particular challenges that might be facing us now might be a little bit new or different, but in reality, our nation has faced a number of challenges, over the years, and successfully worked together to get through those. And I think there's a message of hope in there, is that we'll continue to do that.
And for our listeners who'd like to attend the Memorial Day ceremony or learn more about America's 250 activities here in Dublin, you can find event details at dublinveterans.com. Colonel, before we let you go, we end every episode with a few rapid-fire questions.
Okay.
So the first one, are you ready?
Sure.
Besides the aircraft you already flown, what's your dream aircraft to pilot?
Ooh, that's a tough one. It's probably a two-way tie. Maybe slightly edging out be a P-51 Mustang, which was kind of the fighter that turned the tide of World War II. It was just kind of an amalgamation of a number of technologies, emerging technologies, just coming together at the end of that war that really had a major effect. But it's not so new that it's still a pilot flying. But my second one is probably, or close second, is probably a PT-7 Stearman, which is a biplane trainer used really kind of between World War I and World War II. But that's one where it's still largely, fabric airplane, with old engine, old. That's one that's truly just pilot skill.
Wow, let's go classic.
All right, so when you're in that aircraft, and you could have one person in the world in the cockpit with you, anyone from world history, who would it be?
That's a difficult question as well. I would probably go with this is not to sound cliche, but probably Eddie Rickenbacker, the namesake of Rickenbacker Air National Guard Base, and it's one I've in the last few years since being there and being in command, I've taken the time to really dive into his history. And most people know that he's America's ace of aces from World War I, with 26 and a half kills. He's a Columbus native, grew up on the south side of Columbus. But what a lot of people don't know is the tremendous amount of adversity that he overcame multiple points throughout his life. He's basically a self-taught, self-educated person. Decided that he liked cars and wanted to figure out how they worked, learned how to work on engines, design cars, ended up racing cars, parlay that into flying. Wow. Number of combat missions in World War I, which he flew with some physical impediments that life had thrown at him at that time with some injuries. It comes through that, ends up going to the point, after the war, founds an airline, starts an airline. Ends up contributing as a civilian to the War Department in World War II. He's on a bomber over the Pacific as a civilian that goes down and is essentially lost at sea for 3 weeks and survives that. So just over time, from a difficult family start and essentially dropping out of school at age 13 to take care of his family through building an airline. Because people just don't understand the contributions and what Eddie Rickenbacker really accomplished. And so if I could have somebody in the plane with me, that would be that.
I did not know that story.
No, yeah. A lot of senior military leaders eventually write books. Will you?
I'd say it's certainly in the cards.
All right.
Later on, I do, to your education question, I do plan to pursue a PhD. I think a dissertation would be a great foundation there. I think there's a number of topics, whether it be civil military relations or even to history of the National Guard, to the experiences we face every day as leaders in our military.
All right. Well, if you need editors, we're around, right, Shirley? To offer
sure.
our
Anytime.
services. Speaking of books, what book are you reading right now?
Listening to right now, audiobook, but The Strategy of Denial by Elbridge Colby. And it's basically how an idea or series of ideas of how we structure our national defense in the modern era with the modern threats we're facing.
What's your favorite way to stay in shape?
I run. I'm a runner.
Nice.
I'm a runner. It's like especially being in the Dublin area, you can't not well, you can not run, but it's such a great spot to run with all of the trails and the green spaces in Dublin.
What's a workout you dread most but still have to do?
Dread most. I don't know that I have a particular workout I dread most. I'm not a huge fan of push-ups, but I have to do them every year with the physical fitness test of the military. But yeah, you get through it.
So with it being Memorial Day weekend coming up, have you done the MRF?
I have not done the MRF. Matter of fact, we just got an invitation to be part of the MRF, so that might be on the horizon. For this year.
I do it every year, but I do a very, very, very modified version that involves no pull-ups and no vest. But it's a good run for a good cause.
What's your favorite Dublin spot? Park, restaurant, or hidden gym?
Well, I probably alluded to it earlier, but the trails, the bike paths, and all around the city. They're fantastic, and it's a great way to just get around. Which, as far as where we like to go, basically you can pick any patio at any of the establishments in Old Dublin or Bridge Park.
Right. Yes. 150 plus miles, right?
Right.
Of paths around. All right. Final question. Finish this sentence, please. Memorial Day means
Honoring dedicated service and sacrifice, remembering, and uplifting.
Well, it's been an honor to have you with us today for this uplifting conversation, and we really look forward to having you on Memorial Day. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be part of this podcast and spend some time with you today talking about the Wing and Memorial Day.
And to our listeners, thank you as well for taking the time to connect with your city. Tune in next time as we continue to explore the many personalities and experiences that make Dublin a thriving place to live, work, and grow.